Number 1. Iran blocks capital's internet access as Amini protests grow. Iran has shut off the internet in parts of Tehran and Kurdistan, and blocked access to platforms such as Instagram and WhatsApp, in an attempt to curb a growing protest movement that has relied on social media to document dissent. Iranian women are burning their hijabs and cutting their hair short in protests over the death of Mahsa Amini, a young woman who died after being arrested in Tehran by Iran's notorious morality police, who enforce the country's rules on hijabs and other conservative Islamic modes of dress and behavior. Activists said the woman, whose Kurdish first name is Gina, had suffered a fatal blow to the head, a claim denied by officials, who have announced an investigation. Police continue to maintain that she died of natural causes, but her family suspect that she was subjected to beating and torture. In response to her death, the US placed Iran's morality police on its sanctions blacklist on Thursday. The US Treasury said the morality police were responsible for Amini's death as it announced the sanctions for abuse and violence against Iranian women and the violation of the rights of peaceful Iranian protesters. Amnesty International said it had recorded the deaths of 8 people, 6 men, 1 woman, and a child, with 4 shot by security forces at close range with metal pellets. The protests are among the most serious in Iran since November 2019 unrest over fuel price rises. The internet shutdowns must be understood as an extension of the violence and repression that is happening in physical space, said Azada Hakbari, a researcher of cyber surveillance at the University of Twente in the Netherlands. Social media is existential to the mobilization of protesters, not only to coordinate gatherings but also to amplify acts of resistance. You see a woman standing without her hijab in front of the anti-insurgency police, which is very courageous. If a video of this comes out, it's suddenly not just one person doing this, women in all the different cities are doing the same. Women, life, freedom, the words which could be heard at Amini's funeral, have been repeated by protesters across the country, including in a video which shows young women burning their hijabs while male protesters fight off security forces. Another Iranian activist told The Guardian during the last protests, 2017 to 2019, the government cut off internet for days at a time. During that time, protesters were killed and arrested, she said. Protesters are also using the internet to organize themselves. They can call each other and say when they are in danger or warn each other. At the same time as targeting women's rights, the Iranian government was tightening its cyber regime. Some Iranian citizens fear that continued internet blackouts could be used to facilitate an expansion of the Iranian national internet, which is cut off from the rest of the world. Number 2. Russians are protesting and fleeing the country as Putin orders a draft for Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin's order to mobilize more troops to bolster his struggling military campaign in Ukraine has been rippling across Russia, as the military swiftly drafts new recruits and signs of discontent appear to spread. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered an immediate call-up of 300,000 additional troops, even as multiple news reports suggested the real number could be 3 times as many. The Kremlin has tasked regional governors with overseeing the draft and stiffened penalties for refusal of service or desertion to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, the decree's impact is increasingly clear. Dozens of videos have emerged on social media showing families and friends seeing off young recruits to fight. These were scenes few Russians could have imagined even last week. In Dagestan, in Russia's south, videos showed an argument outside a recruiting station. "My son has been fighting there since February," says a woman who compares the current conflict to the Soviet Union's war with Nazi Germany in World War II. "That was a war, but this is just politics," a man retorts. Despite government assurances only those with military service background will be drafted, multiple reports are emerging of draft papers being sent to people with no prior military experience. Amid uncertainty over the scope of the draft, news reports and social media posts showed long lines of cars backed up on Russia's border crossings with Finland and Georgia, to the west, and Kazakhstan and Mongolia to the south. Tickets for flights out of Russia to countries with visa-free travel, such as Armenia and Turkey, are either sold out or have soared in price. Rights advocates say police detained more than 1,300 people in protests that erupted in dozens of Russian cities following Putin's address, with crowds yelling "No to war" and "Putin to the trenches." Authorities warned protesters risked violating new laws that criminalize denigrating Russia's armed forces with lengthy prison terms. Several protesters of conscription age claimed they were presented with draft papers while in police custody, a move the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, defended as legal in a news briefing. Anti-war activists have called for additional protests against mobilization over the weekend. Number 3. Powerful earthquake hits Mexico on fateful anniversary. A magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck western Mexico on Monday on the anniversary of two devastating temblors. 2 died in the Pacific port of Manzanillo, authorities said, one crushed by the facade of a department store while another was found dead at a mall. Videos on social media showed the roof of the mall collapsed into the top floor, a gym, as people yelled for help. The quake hit shortly after 1 p.m., 18 o'clock GMT, near Mexico's west coast and close to Michoacan's border with the state of Colima, where major Port Manzanillo is located, the U.S. Geological Survey said. It was relatively shallow, at only 15 kilometers, 9 miles, deep, which would have amplified its impact. The U.S. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued a tsunami warning for coastal areas, saying waves reaching 1 to 3 meters, 3 to 9 feet, above the tide level were possible. Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum said there were no immediate reports of major damage in the capital after the quake struck, which rumbled through Mexico on the same day as destructive earthquakes battered the country in 1985 and 2017. "It seems like a curse," Isa Montes, a 34-year-old graphic designer in the city's central Roma neighborhood, said of the quake's timing as helicopters flew overhead, surveying the city. The National Autonomous University of Mexico, one of the country's most prestigious seats of higher learning, said there was no scientific explanation for 3 major quakes on the same day and attributed it to pure coincidence. But others had different opinions. Many Mexicans reacted to the latest quake by posting an array of memes online venting their anxiety and finding humor in the natural disaster. Mexican authorities said the seismic alert had sounded nearly 2 minutes before the quake struck, giving residents time to evacuate. Still, some people in the capital struggled to grasp it was a real quake as the government had already sounded the alarm earlier in the day as a practice exercise commemorating the past earthquakes on the same day. By the way, this voice, the one you are currently hearing, was generated using an AI text-to-speech program online. Check out the link in the description if you are interested in learning more. As always, if you found the information in this video at all useful, hit that like and subscribe. And we hope to see you next time.